Hey, hi, and hello. I'm very excited to talk about this subject today because it is just such a big part of my daily life and it brings me a lot of joy. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so special interest and hyperfixations. Special interest is more of an autistic coded word that is used to describe sort of the big passions, subjects that we as autistic people tend to engage with as a way of self regulation. It's kind of just something that our brain latches onto to help us feel calm, help us feel safe. It just is something that's quite important to a lot of us as a way to, soothe our nervous system and to help kind of reestablish equilibrium. So special interests in autistic community are very important, but not everybody has special interests. For me, special interests are something that are very, very long term. They tend to last 3 years or more. And I personally, I have three big special interests that I want to talk about. And the first one is a 20-year long special interest, and that would be books and reading. I remember being like 7 years old. I feel like this is the first time that it really registered like, oh, books and reading are incredibly, incredibly important to me for just helping me feel calm, helping me feel fulfilled, and just one of those things that brought me a lot of joy as a kid and continued all the way up until now. Reading in books has been a really big part of my life, and to this day, it is something that I engage with basically on a daily basis to just help keep me calm and to bring me joy. And I think what's really interesting is how over the years that special interest has kind of evolved, where it started off as just physical hard books, and now it kind of includes things like fan fiction, manga, web comics. It's not just reading like a book, it is the act of reading, it is the act of buying books. It is the act of watching people talk about books and learning about books. It's something that's so much more than just reading itself. My second special interest is languages and culture. And this one, I remember 12 years old sitting in my first Spanish class. So that's a 15-year long special interest. And it has, again, it has evolved to be something a lot more than just learning about Spanish. Over the years, I've picked up on a lot of romance languages. I was on Duolingo all the time, learning these Eurocentric languages. And at the end of college, I shifted more to Asian based languages. So I've been learning Japanese for several years. I've picked up a lot of Korean over the years. I've learned a little bit of Mandarin, and my next goal is to learn Thai. Again, this is another special interest that's just always kind of evolving, but it also doesn't just include the languages themselves. Like, I think words and expressions are so freaking cool. And so, even like the English language in and of itself, learning about, the history of words, learning about the linguistics, I think is just so much fun. But it's also about the cultures associated with language, the way that language influences culture and how culture influences language. I think that is super fascinating. So that also means that when I engage with this special interest, I'm not just learning languages, I'm also learning about the cultures behind those languages. And it's not just about the cultures associated with like countries, it's also the cultures associated with communities and maybe the different words and slang that different communities use. Learning about the autistic community, for example, learning about the words special interest, like that is scratching the itch of my in my brain when it comes to languages, like special interest being a word, a phrase coming from the autistic culture. Which brings me to my third special interest, dance. I love dance. I love dancing. I love learning about dance. I love learning about dance genres and learning about dance community. And I love learning about different choreographers and watching performances. Dance is phenomenal. I could not recommend it enough. And I myself have been dancing since I was about 16, 17. So this is a 10-year long special interest. I was on the cheer team. So I started off learning cheer based dances, and that evolved to going to college classes to learn contemporary, jazz, ballet. And then that shifted to learning dances online and then watching videos online and recreating them, or like learning TikTok dances, that kind of thing. So dance is a really big, really, really big passion of mine. All right, so that wraps up my 3 special interests. Now moving on to hyperfixation. So hyperfixations is more of an ADHD coded word. And for me, hyperfixations are very short term and very, very, very intense. Most of my hyperfixations last about 3 days to 3 months, and then that's it. And so for hyperfixations, the reason why they're so intense is because I don't sleep. I like barely eat. I cannot focus on anything else but the hyperfixation. It kind of leaves me breathless. It's like I'm sprinting a marathon. Like that is how intense it is with a hyperfixation. And all I want to do is engage with that hyperfixation. That's all I can think about. That's all I want to talk about. Because they're so short term and so intense, I don't engage with them quite as much as my special interests. They're more of a sporadic thing that come up a couple times a year. So a couple hyperfixations that I've had over the years would be horseback riding and just learning about horses in general. I went through a phase of musicals and just listening to Broadway soundtracks. A more recent hyperfixation was ice skating. Another one was the like seasonal color analysis. And so if you can already see, like these hyperfixations are a lot more randomized. They don't really make sense, but they're short, they're fast, they're very high energy, and they're very fun. That being said, being both autistic and having ADHD, I get a lot of feedback from both. I get special interests, but I also get hyperfixations. And a lot of my hyperfixations are kind of inspired by my special interests. For example, take languages and culture, combine that with dance, and then you got K-pop. So K-pop's for me started off as a hyperfixation, and it slowly evolved into like a subsection of my special interests because it combines some of my favorite things from 2 of my special interests. And so now it's been years since I've gotten into K-pop. I still listen to it a lot. I still watch videos. I'm constantly learning new K-pop choreography and watching performances. I'm a big fan. Another example would be like manga or danme, and those are kind of the combination of languages and culture plus books and reading. I've discovered different genres or different just book formats that allow me to learn about other cultures while reading, which I think is really cool. I think that crossover between special interests and hyperfixations are really cool. And it's also cool to see how like a hyperfixation, rather than just like dying at the end of 3 days to 3 months, it just kind of peters out. And sometimes I can kind of stretch it and make it last a lot longer because it's associated with a special interest. So, like, the majority of my hyperfixations are things that they still pop up. You know, I've gone through the hyperfixation phase, the intensity is gone, but those hyperfixations still kind of linger because they're almost always associated with my special interest in some way, or they've like morphed into subsections of my special interest. And I think that's a really cool thing about being AuDHD is that I get this crossover, and so I have different ways of engaging with things. I'm able to engage with them in different ways, from different angles, from new perspectives, and I'm always discovering and learning new things about these things that I'm curious about. And I think that's really cool. Like, that's just really freaking cool. I don't know if everybody who's gonna watch this is going to really understand the like complexity of these things. Special interests and hyperfixations are so much more than just a hobby. They are so, so, so much more grand than that. They give me so much more fulfillment than just a hobby. And they're things that I engage with on a daily basis because they're so important for self regulation, but they're also just so incredibly important for bringing me joy. If you don't have special interests, you don't have hyperfixations, this is just my little message to say, like, I still encourage you to find something you're passionate about. It might not be at the same intensity that a neurodivergent mind might have. It might not be all consuming the way that I experience it to be, But I just really hope that everybody can find something that they're passionate about, something that brings them joy, something that makes them feel fulfilled. I think it's just such an important part of the human experience. And I don't know, I just want to share my experience with that. I hope that everybody else out there can find something that they love and go out there and info dump about it to somebody. Tell somebody all about it. Share it with everybody that you know. Like, I love learning about other people's passions, and I would love to hear what your passions are, what your special interests are, what your hyperfixations are. Please share them. I love talking about this stuff. I love learning about other people in this capacity, in this way. So yeah, if you watched this far, thank you. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I enjoy talking about it.